Pleased to be joined by Lieutenant Colonel retired in the U.S. Air Force, Brett Meyer. Thank you so much for joining.
Well,
Absolutely. All right. So, can you talk to us about just what your initial reactions were to seeing what unfolded in Iran?
like everybody else, I was following the news, and the president had indicated that he was looking at taking about 2 weeks to make a decision, but not knowing what all the ongoing intel is from all our allies and our own intel sources, something caused him to move faster. And so he decisively made a decision and hit the three sites.
And I heard this from a political strategist that we talked to last night, and another former political candidate saying the president has information that we're not privy to. And although it may not seem like what we see necessarily as spectators on the ground, seems like um, are not the same information that he's getting over time. Is that correct from your experience as well?
um, what is allowed to be given to the uh, public in general is usually a lot different than what is being talked to at the levels that they're making decisions at.
And now Iran has kind of talked about these attacks. They've shown off their weapons for several years. What did this finally come to? Why was now the time to go? I imagine it's that information you're talking about.
Goes back to the intel, and something caused Israel to decide to strike now. And obviously, they were doing I hate to say it, a bang up job, but they were doing the job that they needed to do to destroy or reduce Iran's ability to hit Israel. But there were some sites they just weren't able to be able to destroy without the U.S. help, because we've got the only ordinance that'll allow them to do that.
And we've known for some time that Iran has several powerful weapons, even if they were not able to quite get to that point with the nuclear weapon just yet. Why was this important to go after these sites in particular? I know that there's the concern that these missiles that you see, like the ones that Iran launches towards Israel, what happens if those are armed with a warhead that is nuclear?
That would change the full dynamic in the world, not just the Middle East, but the whole world. And so I think these strikes, from what I understand, were done to reduce the possibility of them being able to tip one of their missiles with a nuclear weapon.
So while this decision was uh, definitely, we would imagine, has been recent as far as wanting to make this decision to learn that intel, has a plan or something of that sort, do you think, been in works this whole time to operate a mission like the one that we just saw carried out?
The military does, they plan for a lot of different contingencies, and they're continually updating those as the world changes. And so I'm sure there was something there that they built off of for this. Um, but they've got a full range of resources that they can pull from. And this was probably the best one that they had, and also the quickest.
Can you talk to us about what a bunker buster bomb is? We're hearing that term a lot.
Uh, well, I wasn't a pilot and I didn't drop ordnance, but it's a 30,000 pound bomb that's designed to penetrate deeply into the earth. It's got a two-stage explosive. The first stage explodes after it's penetrated. The second stage continues the penetration and explodes again. And then they follow up with the second one that goes right in the same hole the first one.
And that's likely to reach these bunkers, which that's been the concern, was that Iran wasn't going to operate these things above ground. But something like this has the ability, unlike what would, I guess, be considered less severe bombs, to then go in and penetrate the way that this did.
Hopefully the explosion then destroyed the enrichment facility, which is what they were looking to do.
Right. What kind of message do you think this sends from the American military and just the American government about its capabilities and what it can do if it feels like it's pushed to do so?
Um, I think it sends a message that says we're watching, we understand what's going on, and we've said for decades we're not going to allow you to get close to having a nuclear weapon.
And as far as boots on the ground, is there a possibility of that following this, or was this message just this is what can happen to you? We're going to keep our troops back at home or at the bases.
Well, again, I'm not privy to all the intel that's going on. To me, it would seem that boots on the ground would be a secondary or even a tertiary opportunity. When we put boots on the ground in Iraq and Afghanistan, there was an insurgency that the U.S. needed to deal with, and there's no insurgency here. This is strictly taking out the leadership and the means for Iran to retaliate.
How has drone warfare and unmanned aircraft warfare, or just this type of aircraft warfare, manned aircraft warfare as well, both types, unmanned and manned, how does that change the game as far as these military conflicts are concerned?
On who the conflicts with, nation states, they've all got different technologies and at different levels. The manned aircraft, they're getting stealthier, and it's allowing us to do things that we wouldn't have been able to do 20, 25 years ago. The drones are a whole new aspect and totally clicking in the asymmetrical warfare space because they're hard to defend against. It's continually changing. Look at Ukraine. You can see what they're doing. And that's just with the little hobby drones that, you can go buy down at the store, not let alone the big ones that have the larger warheads.
How do you think Iran responds here?
That's a tough one. I think they'll probably respond with more attacks on Israel because we haven't taken out all their launchers. I think they'll probably respond also with their proxies. So the Houthis are going to start spinning stuff up, probably Hamas again, Hezbollah, all the organizations they've been arming for the last 30 years.
And we know that Hamas and Hezbollah as well, but Hamas in particular in this case has been severely weakened over the last year or so. But they still hold those valuable hostages, which Israel is trying to do their best to recover. And of course, it kind of determines the game plan, I guess, around how they do so. What role do you think that the hostages will have in the future of this conflict for Israel or for the United States?
They haven't been real supportive in giving up their hostages yet. And so, and they're still well armed. No matter how much is destroyed, they still have more, and they're right next door to Israel. So I think that's still going to be an ongoing threat. I don't know where that ends. But I think Iran will probably try to strike our bases in the Middle East. They've indicated that that's what they want to do, and they'll probably do it through their proxies. But I'm not quite sure. Again, I don't have any intel on any of that.
And then as far as their last couple of questions for you, by the way, and thank you so much for your time, but as far as their proxies are concerned, are those kind of their lone friends in the region at this point? Does Iran kind of feel like they're on a bit of an island as far as this conflict is concerned? We know for maybe folks that aren't too familiar with it that Iran and Saudi Arabia kind of have a bit of a rift, as well as Iran with some of the other countries as well, just whether it's based on religion or just based on regional power. How does that play into this? The fact that maybe their best friends are just the ones that they are still able to fund.
And, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So Russia seems to deal with Iran a lot. The Chinese were also. I still can't discount that. They can say one thing and turn around and do something else because things are happening behind the curtain, so to speak, that you don't see what's going on. We do know about Hezbollah and everything else because Iran has been feeding them intel, weapons, everything else, and probably giving them target data too. But I have no idea who else would be players in that. You've got all of Africa. You've got they've been supplying stuff all over the world to organizations that want that type of thing.
And the last question for you as well, or what is I know this is necessarily your area of expertise, but are we hearkening, I guess, back to the Cold War, and this is maybe more of the Soviet Union, but are we seeing these the potential for little attacks to pop up, whether it's on attacks on American families or American service members, like Iran media has suggested will happen, as opposed to these large-scale military acts, looking at more or less assassinations, or as what used to be, we don't see it quite as commonly used as far as a word of the day from Iran, which is a fatwa.
Well, the U.S. doesn't do assassinations. They, however, have indicated that they are more than willing to assassinate government leaders. And if they have an opportunity, I think they'll take it. It's, pretty, it's not going to require a lot of assets. Now, I'm sure they have assets in the United States. I'm sure every country in the world does. I don't know who, where, or why, but they do. Whether they activate those assets and have them doing things, power grid, et cetera, I don't know, but it's all part of the asymmetrical warfare that they're going to probably try to attempt. They have to save face. That's the big thing right now. They've just been thoroughly slacked down in the last 2 weeks.
And I lied. I'm going to ask you one last question. It seems like the people that feel like they're going to be most at risk are those that have family in Iran. A lot of American immigrants or people that have immigrated to America. We've had so many people in the community that are worried about speaking up because they still have family back overseas. Is that an area where you think that regime would put their energy towards, and perhaps hearkening on the unfortunate success of Hamas's ability to drag out the war in Gaza, based on the way that they hold their hostages there?
Possible. It just depends on what they want. If it makes the news, then it's what they want to see. If it's not making the news, then they're probably not going to put it.
Harken back to way back when the Islamic Republic took over, and of course the hostages that they took, the American hostages, back in the late 70s as well. Thank you so much, Colonel Meyer. We appreciate your time.
Anytime. Thank you.